Hello, I'm Pastor Chuck DeVetter, and I want to talk to you today about maybe an area where, not maybe, but an area where in the church we've limited ourselves and we've actually been put ourselves in position where we weren't able to walk into the things of God in the way that God would like us to walk into them. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today is I'm going to talk to you about that place where we're listening and trying to hear the voice of God. And we're beginning to even learn the language of God, but what we're looking for is we're looking for a place of peace in order to draw us to the next step. Now, God is peace, and the atmosphere of God is peace and love, and so that's a good thing. And so as we look and feel peace, we can feel the presence of God. We can be in the Spirit and all that, and that's really good. But what I'm going to tell you is that if we limit ourselves to be able to follow the lead of God by feeling peace, which we have often in the church, what happens is that it keeps us in a place of flesh. As a matter of fact, if you can picture this image of a box, okay, and what ends up happening is if we're in a place where we begin to live out of a box and we put ourselves in that place of doing the things that feel peace or comfortable, what happens is that we stay and we live out of a box. But what happens is the box gets smaller, and there actually is another video that we have on the box that'll define this and get into it more. But what I'm talking to you today about is the fact that as long as I live in those places that feel comfortable and I feel peace, what happens is I get stuck in the box. And what I need to know is that God magnifies His strength through my weakness, okay? And so somehow if I stay in the areas of comfort, if I stay in those areas of comfort, what's going to happen is that I'm going to be more and more, my box is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. But if I begin to realize that if I can step out of my box, into that place of my weakness, okay, what ends up happening is that God can magnify His strength through that place, okay? What does that mean? Well, if I think about the walls of my box, what the walls of my box are flesh. They're feelings of anxiety and fear and sadness and anger and depression and all that kind of stuff. And so as I'm in a place where I begin to step out of those natural things. Let's say that I'm the worship leader, and the natural thing is to come to church and bring everybody into that place of worship. Well, that's awesome. That's cool. But the problem is, as I do that constantly, what ends up happening, and then I stay in that place and I don't step outside the walls of the box, what happens is I get stuck in that place, okay? All right? And often I even boast because of the fact that I'm thinking, oh, look at what I'm doing. It's so wonderful. But what happens is and it probably is wonderful, but what happens is that if I'm in that place and I get stuck in that place, what happens is I can't step into those supernatural things of God in the way that God would have me step into them. But what would happen is I just get stuck. But what I'm going to tell you today is I'm just going to give you a thought or a concept on how I feel God works often in order to get us to the place that we don't boast, in order to get us to the place where He can magnify His strength through our weakness. What He does is as we're willing to step through the walls of our box, as we're willing to step through and say, God, I'm going to trust you, and we actually step outside our box into our weakness. All right? We step out into that place of our weakness. All right? Now, God will direct us. We don't do it on our own imagination, but He'll direct us, and we step through the fear and the anxiety and the worry and the control, and we just step outside of the box, and we begin to say, God, I'm going to trust you. And we hold on to Him tight, and we say, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you, God. And all of a sudden, we start feeling those feelings of flesh, the anxiety, the fear, the sadness, the depression, even that place of trying to self-protect, we begin begin to let go of, okay? And we just hold on to him. We say, God, I'm going to trust you. And our flesh is dying and all that. And we say, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. And we weep and we cry and we hold on and we say, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. And as that happens, we're again letting go of our self-protection, and the flesh begins to die, and it actually stops coming and showing up. But when that happens, what's happening is we're living outside the box. We're living outside that place that we feel comfortable. And all of a sudden what happens in the midst of that place that we're outside of is we feel all those feelings, and what's coming to our mind is that we're worthless, or we don't bring anything to the table, or there's something wrong with us, or thoughts like that. And we just hang on to Jesus. We say, God, help me. And we just hold on, and our flesh just keeps dying and keeps dying. And so there's a season in that we feel like we bring nothing to the table. And in the midst of that season that we feel we bring nothing to the table, what ends up happening is that we just get through that season and we hold on to him. And God is building roots in that. He's building roots. And what happens is our trust in him gets deeper and deeper, because we can't protect ourselves anymore, because we don't bring anything to the table, that we have to solely look to him and rely on him, and we want to, and we hold on, and we know that he's our anchor. And in the midst of that season goes by, and no longer are we in a place where we don't think we bring anything to the table. Even though that's still true, we come to the next season and we don't think we bring anything to the table. But the next season, we're in a season where we don't think we bring anything to the table, and we're okay with it, because we know he brings it all to the table. And that we don't need to get our value by what we do, because our value is already established from the beginning of time. But our value is in place, and we're okay with not bringing anything to the table. And in the midst of that, what happens is it brings us out of this situation that we would boast. And he can actually bring us back into our strength. And at that point in time, we can even walk through our strength as though it's weakness, because we know we bring nothing to the table, that he brings everything. And so I believe that often we pursue our dreams. We go after the dream. We go after the thing that we're really good at. And in the midst of that, we may and probably are a step ahead of God. Because what happens is, as we do that, what ends up happening is our heart isn't prepared, our heart isn't ready. But when we're willing to do what he wants us to do, we're willing to walk through and crush our flesh and say, God, I don't get it. I don't want to clean toilets, but that's what you're having me do. That's okay. I don't want to do this job. I want to be in ministry, but that's what you're having me do. God, I don't want to be part of what's going on in this specific church, because it just doesn't feel good, but that's what you're having me do. And as I just grab onto him and I just re-anchor, I let go of me having to protect myself, and the flesh shows up, and I feel the anxiety and the fear, the sadness and depression and all that, and I just hold on and I grab on and I say, I love you, Jesus, and I weep and I cry, and he re-anchors me deeper and deeper. When that all happens, what ends up happening is I get anchored in trust and faith in him. And now when I'm in that place of re-anchored in trust and faith in him, when my heart is submitted to him, then when I walk through, and then when he releases the incredible things that he has inside of me, those revelations that he has inside of me, I don't get in the way. I don't boast, because I know that I don't need anything to happen for me to have value, because my value is complete and full in him. And when I know that in my heart, then what happens is I walk step by step and let him lead me and seek that he leads me. And as he leads me, what ends up happening is I just trust him. I don't look for him to perform. I don't love him based on how he performs. I love him based on who he is. And whatever it looks like is okay, even though I know what's coming often. It doesn't matter what happens or what it looks like. I just love him based on who he is. And when I love him based on who he is, then it's so exciting and so much fun to be part of what he's doing. And I get to be part of it because I don't get in the way, because I'm trying to perform, or I'm in a place where I need him to perform or do things the way I want him to do them. But I'm submitted to his heart and his love. So again, I thank you for listening, and I ask God to bless you again abundantly these coming days, months, and years. Thank you.